22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
And are not afraid to say it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are tuned into Black Westchester's People Before Politics radio show. This is episode 298, 2 weeks away from the 300th episode. Yes, you heard me right, the 300th episode. It's about to go down. It's going to be a celebration. We're going to be on for an extra hour that day. A bunch of people coming through, give us, say a couple words about Black Westchester and People Before Politics. Some of our favorite guests might show some of my favorite scenes, and we'll talk about our memories and all that good stuff. It's going to be a great celebration. Anybody who's interested in sponsoring, hit us now at blackwestchester@gmail.com. Anybody interested in appearing and saying a couple of words, make sure you also hit us as well. Before I get started, I want to give a shout out. I'm going to bring in my co-host, Dr. Bob, in a minute, and I wanted to give a shout out to Lorraine Lopez. She's doing some spring cleaning, something we all need to do this time of year. And she had a flow going and did not want to interrupt. And I understand when I'm getting the flow going, I do not want to be interrupted, else I might not get back to it. But so shout out to her. She won't be here. And Damon K. Jones may be here today. Now, before I bring Bob in, I wanted to mention, and I had to pull it up real quick because I don't want to misstate it. So evidently there was a couple of shootings in New Rochelle. When it gets warm, when the temperature gets hot, the streets get hot. So May 1st, which would be yesterday, at about 11:59 p.m., there were multiple shots fired on Horton Avenue and Brook Street. That's right by the projects. I forget what the new name of it is called in New Rochelle. So the police responded. One victim, a 29-year-old brother from Brooklyn, was shot in the neck and subsequently pronounced dead on the scene. And the second victim was shot in the back and was transported to an area hospital where he underwent surgery. And 3 other victims sustained non-threatening injuries, according to hospital personnel. Then a couple of minutes later, 12:59 a.m., multiple shots were fired in the vicinity of 361 Main Street. Supposedly an unknown suspect standing in the courtyard firing multiple shots, striking 3rd, 4th, and 5th floor windows. It's not known if the incidents are connected. New Rochelle police detectives and Westchester County District Attorney conducting their follow-up interviews. Anybody with any information is urged to call New Rochelle Police Department at 914-654-2300. I just wanted to I wanted to do that brief announcement. Like I said, when the temperature gets hot, the streets get hot. Just be careful out there. Shout out to the people on the front lines fighting against senseless gun violence. And yes, we make a big deal when people are killed by the police, but we need to make an equally big deal when um, they're killed by people that look like us in the streets. We can't fight one thing and not be outraged about the other. With that, I welcome my partner, my co-host, Dr. Bob Robert Baskerville, um, the man, the myth, the legend, in the building. In the building, like I said, Lorraine is not going to be here with us today. Damon might be. We have two guests. The first one is in the green room. We're going to bring her shortly. Joanne Dunn of the Youth Shelter of Westchester. I hope I've said that right. And yes, she's shaking her head. Yes, I see you. Okay, so I said that right. And in the second hour, we have Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, also a candidate for mayor of New York City, one of the many candidates. They have like a basketball team of candidates running. Um, as you all know, I received a fellowship from the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at CUNY to cover the New York City race. So I'm glad to announce and have Bob look over one of the pieces that I was able to get my first two assignments in, and they're done. They're done, and they're on blackwestchester.com. A piece on ranked choice voting, and whether the people in the Bronx really understand what it is, and the second one about two of the ladies who are running for Bronx borough president, and if either win, they will be the first female Bronx borough president. One will be the first Latina, and one will be the first African American. Period. So I did a piece on both of them, and you can find them on Black Westchester and in the newspaper that I'm finishing up, which will be out. The May issue will be out May 7th, this Friday. And yes, I'm saying that. So if you're listening, you actually have 24 hours left to get that, to have a few ad spaces left if you want them. You have 24 hours to get them in. Thank you all who supported us. I also wanted to talk about, and Bob, if you want to speak a little bit about this. So the you've been reading a lot for the last year or so about a lot that's been going on in the Mount Vernon Police Department. We had a whistleblower cop that exposed a lot of things, and a lot of stuff was turned over to the former district attorney, who is no longer there, Anthony Scarpino, and he refused to do anything, or said that it was the tapes that he got were just hearsay, and he didn't look into them. Well, the current district attorney, Mimi Roca, has hit the ground running, and she has investigated and seen enough that she is passed on all the information over to the Department of Justice and is calling for a Department of Justice investigation of the Mount Vernon Police Department. Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer has also seconded that he is encouraging the DOJ to investigate. And our new Congressman Jamal Bowman is putting out a statement, and all that'll be in the paper. You'll see that in the paper, one of the first pages of the paper on Friday. Shout out to, and I got to give credit where credit is due. So Mount Vernon Mayor Sean Patterson Howard is in the Caribbean right now. I hit her up for a quote, and she video conferenced me from the Caribbean to make sure that I got her quote. And then she went back to her vacation. She just started her vacation. I have to give props to that, because if I'm on vacation, I'm not sure I'm going to pay any of y'all any mind. I'm going to be honest. So she did video chat me real quick. And so I have to give a shout out. And she also wanted me to give a shout out to, she said her sister, Joanne Dunn. She said, make sure I give her sister a shout out. So before we bring Joanne, anything you want to say about the investigation or the calling for the investigation for the Mount Vernon Police Department?
I'll simply echo you in applauding District Attorney Roca for investigating allegations of wrongdoing on behalf of members of the Mount Vernon Police Department. This really does bode well, AJ, because it signals that she's going to break with the pattern of being overly deferential to our police forces. I also have to add that her announcement has caused me to rethink the outcome of the Mount Vernon Police Reform Commission, as you know, AJ, because we did follow the story a little bit and some of the insider details, there did seem to be considerable disagreement amongst members of the board about what was the best path forward to reform the Mount Vernon Police Department. And from my understanding, the board passed up on an opportunity. I'm sorry, is it the committee or the commission? The commission passed up on the opportunity to redraw lines of authority so that you would have a civilian commission providing oversight to the Mount Vernon Police Department. And I think that DA Roker's conclusion that there is sufficient corruption in the city of Mount Vernon that the matter needs to be forwarded to the feds for further investigation suggests that this was a bad judgment.
And again, I will say again, and the mayor wanted me to reiterate. She called me from vacation. You know, her and her commissioner Glenn Scott have been calling for federal agencies or other agencies to come in and investigate because Commissioner Scott said it's hard to police you can police your own police in investigations like that. So he gave me a statement as well. And I was talking to Marcus Griffin, Councilman Marcus Griffin, Council President Marcus Griffin,
Okay.
and he sent me a text just before the show, and I will read that. He said, if there is 1% of bad officers, we want them out to protect the 99% of the good officers. It's a direct quote from the Council President. So we're going to be covering more of that later. I don't want to get stuck on that because we do have guests, but I definitely wanted to bring attention to that. Shout out to Keith Olson of the Yonkers PBA who's tuned in, Stephen Simpson, Luis Sanchez. I can't see who else is tuned in. But yes, I think it would be a good thing. We're talking about allegations that go back to 2012. So to be clear, that's well before the Sean Patterson Howard administration. That is also some that took place under the Thomas administration, and 2012 would be some that predate the Thomas administration. So we can't blame everything on his administration as well. But I hope that they are going to take a detailed look into all of that. And last thing before our guest, so there's going to be a press conference or something tomorrow. I don't have the information in front of me. Community leaders and some clergy, I think, are having a press conference because of the money that was supposed to be coming in, the situation that's going on with the controller. There was a vote with the city council to circumvent the money coming into the controller and going into the clerk's office, and the clerk sending it over to the water department. And there have been a lot of concerns. I've got a call from my pastor, Pastor Poe, who will be one of the people speaking at the press conference, Derek Lawrence, who happens to be running for controller, but more importantly, he was part of the charter administration, the charter committee, the charter revision committee. He was the president, the head of it. And one of the things he says, you can't change the charter and take away somebody's powers without a referendum that goes to vote for the people. Because the charter gives her certain powers. You can't just take them away from her without a referendum or something. And he speaks from being on the charter commission. So there'll be more on that. I'll try to put something up on Black Westchester about that tonight. But I did want to mention that press conference will be tomorrow. Look for blackwestchester.com. I'll have it up. And I wanted to just mention that. And with that, shout to AK Cole, just tuned in. And with that, let's bring in our first guest. How are you?
How are you? Thank you for having me.
It's great. You know, we this time of the year we get bogged down with candidates because of the primary. So the thoughtfulness of our co-host Lorraine Lopez, we decided to do some of the candidates on Tuesday so we could actually get back to issues and spotlighting people in the community on our Sunday show. And you are definitely somebody that we want to definitely spotlight and highlight. And for those who don't know, Joanne Dunn and the Youth Shelter of Westchester, hopefully you're about to learn something right now and, find out who she is and what they do and why you need to know who she is.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me again. I'm really excited to be here. I'm also kind of nervous. I I'm not a person that does a lot of talking. I just like to do the work. So, can you guys hear me pretty well?
We hear you well. We hear you well. Yes.
All right,
And
good.
the last issue, well, the issue before last, was this April, March, I guess was Women's Month, and I did an issue where we celebrated a lot of unsung heroes. Because one of the things my mother, who passed 7 years ago, she always said, give me my roses while I'm alive.
Amen.
So this is our giving you your roses part
Oh,
of the show. While you are alive, you are an unsung hero, and we want to change that and make sure people know who you are.
thank you. I appreciate that as the first female executive director here at the Youth Shelter Program of Westchester. So I really appreciate that. So you tell me when I'm ready to jump in, because I'd like to give the audience just a preview of the Youth Shelter, because I think, it's one of Westchester's best kept secrets. And I think that we need to elevate the voice of the Youth Shelter, along with making sure that we have more youth shelters to really tackle the issues of justice involved young people. So
I'm going to get right to that. But before I do, the man, the myth, the legend, he's actually here, David K. Jones. It is not an optical illusion. My partner David is with us today.
Hi, David. Nice to see you.
How you doing?
Good.
What's up, Bob? Hey, Bob.
Uncle D, what's happening, man? Miss Dunn, how are you? It's a pleasure to meet you on
You
air.
too, Dr. Bob.
Look forward to the exchange and you giving us information about the wonderful services y'all provide. D, it's good to see you, baby.
Yeah, I'm going to log over real quick. I got to get my light correct. So,
Okay. No
I'll
problem.
be right back.
All right, no doubt. So, Joanne, let's start with, what is the Youth Shelter of Westchester? How long has it been around? What is it that y'all do?
So the Youth Shelter Program of Westchester has been around for 40 years,
Wow.
providing what I call a residential alternative to incarceration program. So for young people ages prior to raise the age, we were focusing on young people 16 to 21. And what we would do is take young people, instead of them serving their time at the county jail, they would serve their time with us here in a home-like setting. What is unique about the youth shelter, while we might be housed in Mount Vernon, we serve the entire county. And so we get young people from across this county that have benefited from the services of the youth shelter.
Okay. So you are in Mount Vernon. First off, let me just say, we want at Black Westchester and here on People Before Politics, we're always talking about criminal justice reform, and we're always talking about alternatives to incarceration. So to hear that there's an organization that also deals with that, especially with our youth, I definitely wanted to have you on to talk about that. Waiting for Damon to get seated. He's still moving around a little bit. And Damon, everybody knows Damon's been at corrections for 31 years and is the head of Blacks in Law Enforcement of America. And he's always talking about alternatives to incarceration, stuff like that too. We can't just arrest our problems away, and that's what's being done. And, after George Floyd, and the national outcry after that, there is a real big call for all forms of police reform. And one of that is alternatives to incarceration. So I'm glad to, and I definitely want to hear more about it. Welcome back, David.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I've been here now at the youth shelter for about a year. And of course, like you said, last year, not only did we have to deal with COVID, but we had a whole, the country was in an awakening state, right? We knew that Black and brown communities were over policed for years. And I think what happened is it started to bubble out of control. And then we had social media that allowed us to capture these moments and share them on a national platform. But for me, as a woman coming here to the shelter, work here becomes very personal because I'm raising 2 Black sons. And so what I love about the youth shelter is that we really offer a young person, what we say here is that you're far better than the worst thing that you've ever done, right? And by the time you're 40, you're going to look back over your life and say, I was 18 when I did that. I was 19. You have your whole life ahead of you. And I think that we understand here this notion of what we call restorative justice, because you will see that brain science tells us that young people's minds don't develop until they're in their mid-20s, right? So everybody got it right. When you look at healthcare, young people are on their parents' health insurance until they're 26. You can actually stay in school until you're 21, right? To get your high school diploma. You can stay, you can health insurance. But I think the justice system we're still, while we raised the age, right? And we now are charging young people up at 18 with adult criminal responsibility, but 18 is not the beginning. 18 is just the beginning of when young people become adults. And I think that our justice system has a lot more ways to go when we think about age appropriate solutions to justice. That's what we call it here. Because at 18, it is not that one is an adult, it is the beginning of adulthood. And so there is a lot of work that still needs to be done to make sure that we can restore and reshape the lives of young people. And that's what our work here at the youth shelter is really all about, taking young people and really helping them rethink and reshape their lives.
Now, because it's election time, and I will be interviewing a lot of elected officials, and a lot of them are watching the show or will watch it, on Black Westchester later. One of the things Damon and I always talk about, and Bob talk about, is legislation, the need for legislation. So speaking to the elected officials, the state, the federal, the county, what can they do to help what you do as far as legislation? What legislation
I
would
think
you
as far as legislation, when I think of here and really in the criminal justice, we raise the age, but we need to raise the age a bit further, right? We need to think of this notion of young people really 18 to 24, because brain science tells us at the age of 25 is when a young person really flips to adulthood. And I think we need to think of raising the age beyond the age of 18 and also expanding youthful offender status, right? If we're talking about really restoring, or this notion of restorative justice, we need to think about youthful offender status being beyond the age of 18. And that a young person, a first-time offense, a violation of probation, that these are opportunities that a young person could be afforded a youthful offender status as well. I think that when we think about also, we need to think about lowering the barriers of entry, right? Housing is a major issue for a lot of returning citizens. Employment, right? Because we ban the box, but yet we still kind of quote unquote discriminate on people who have, criminal backgrounds. And so I think we need to look at lowering the barriers of entry for housing, employment, even also with healthcare, right? I know there's a lot of issues, but legislative wise, in regards to criminal justice, I think that there's two things that I hang my hat on right now. And that is raising the age beyond the age of 18. I would almost say to 25, but I'll accept 21 at this time. But then I would also say that we need to expand youthful offender status. And then what we need to look at is really, how do we really embed community alternatives and really invoke diversionary programming to make sure that young people are not coming in the pipeline. We talk a lot about this school to prison pipeline, but we need to talk about community to prison pipeline, right? If we don't invest in community and the resources there, these young people, they're left with nothing but trouble. So I think we need to think about making sure that our programs or our resources in each community reflect the diversity of this county, that what happens in Scarsdale mimics in Mount Vernon, right? Exactly.
Now, I want to turn it over to Damon, who can talk about it from the other side, from corrections and the need for the work that it is that you do. Go ahead, Damon.
I think what Sister Joanne is saying is 100% true, right? We invest in corrections, but we don't invest in preventive, right? To invest in and actually invest in our youth, especially here in Westchester County. We know what the problem is, but our elected officials have failed. I've been locked up as an officer my whole adult life. I started when I turned 21. I'm 52 years old, right? So I've been there 31 years. I get it. I see it, right? When young Black males come to jail and they tell me as a correction officer that I'm more like their father than their father out on the street. And I'm still, and at that time when that man told me, I'm still a young man myself, but because of the position that I have and the position of power that I wield in the correctional facility, I am their father. I tell them when to wake up. I tell them when to eat. I tell them when they go out to rec, I tell them to do all that. But we have to invest on the outside. And that was my argument with the county and with the state when they was letting people out for COVID. And I said, well, if you're going to put them out on the street, there is more programs in jail than there is on the street. They could get training in jail, but they're not afford training on the street. We got this thing backwards.
We do.
So, and it's been a long time that we have this thing backwards. We invested in correctional facilities, but we don't invest in community centers. We don't invest in vocational training. We don't invest in mental health, right? We don't invest in all these things that we need to invest in, because we have to invest in the social problems before they become criminal problems.
Exactly.
And that's the problem that I see with elected officials. This sister's doing what she has to do on her end, but the politicians now, if they want to talk the talk, they have to walk the walk. They have to invest in social programs.
I so agree with you.
Especially the Black communities. If we're gonna turn the tide on crime and violence in the Black communities, and we also have an influx of homeless children in Westchester County. See, we get it twisted. We think Westchester County, and we think Jay-Z and Beyonce, and we think, big time pastors and Black enterprise, and we think all that great stuff. But on the other hand of all that great stuff, I haven't talked in a long time, so trust me, I got a lot of things.
Damon, you're speaking what we all know, right? And I think Liz,
exactly.
If we invest in the social problems, we could eliminate the criminal responsibilities. And I think for me coming here to the shelter, I'm delighted that the shelter has been around but for 40 years, right? Mm-hmm. But for me, I'm like, if it's around another 40 years, then that's a problem. Like at the end of the day, my job is to put myself out of business. Exactly. Because I would like to flip it, because I almost, as a woman of color raising two young men, I said to myself when I got here, I love the work that the shelter does. It is an intervention to help young people who are coming into the justice system to really get them out of it, right? And I think the work that we do here is so crucial. It's so vital. However, for me, it's almost as if it's too late too, right? Because technically they're remanded to incarceration. And so my thing is that how do we get to the root causes of why young people are even coming to the pipeline from the beginning? And it's not necessarily school for my guys, because they haven't been to school, right? They dropped out of school a long time ago. So these are the ones that are on the block, on the corner. And I think it's what you said, Damon, it's when we invest in community, right? Exactly. Like I think about a lot of my young people who they're here on their first robbery charge, right? Because they robbed a bodega. And then when you get to the root causes of why they robbed the bodega, it was because I was hungry, Miss Dunn, so I robbed them, Exactly. And so when you start to dig deeper into the root causes and the trauma that these young people have faced, either because they have broken infrastructure or they had certain insecurities where their parents or whatever. And so when you start to deal with the whole child, you see that this young person is a young person truly crying for help, really in need of that guidance, that support, that person to help guide them through. And I think what I love about the youth shelter is, while I'm the first woman, and I have to go back, the youth shelter is an all-male facility. So you think about the youth shelter. I have young people here now, ages 18 to 24, who are young men, and we treat them like young men. We treat them like young men. We call them young scholars, because we want them to start to think about what they can attain and what they can be. And so, they say to me, you're like a mom to me. And I say, yeah, but I'm still gonna pop you upside the head when you were wrong, because I want you to know that you're gonna go out there and you're gonna achieve something, that you're far better than the worst thing that you've ever done. Our work here at the youth shelter is hinged on a lot of clinical, like Damon said, the mental health aspect. Because a lot of these young people, we have to start to dig to their core to understand how they got here from the beginning. And if we're talking about breaking behaviors, you got to dig into the cognitive or the root causes of why they even got here. And so we do a lot of clinical pieces. We work in hand. We have clinical social workers on board. And then we do a lot of, we're hinged on a lot of educational, vocational, and also what we call hybrid training programs. We're not saying college is not the next step for our young people, but when they leave here, we want them to really have a skill set, have the academic bills to go with it, the academic suite, and then go out there and get that job, go work, right? Because employment is a key factor for young people not to recidivize, to not come back in the pipeline. However, though, when we think of Mount Vernon, right, and I think of right now where we're hitched at, it's a great place because we're in an industrial area of Mount Vernon, but then the jobs are mom and pop jobs. So I think that, again, when we talk about, we have to break down a lot of political stuff, because we need politicians, legislators. We need to invest in communities, right? We need jobs in these areas. And a lot of my young people come from, let me just stop here for a minute. There's 2 tracks many times. Well, there's 3 now. Northern Westchester, I get a lot of young people from Peekskill. I get people from Yonkers, and of course, Mount Vernon. Mm-hmm. But when you look at it, those places, jobs are limited. Jobs are few and far between, right? And so we need to think about again, I said, lowering the barriers or the entry points for jobs, but then also making sure there's jobs available for people to get into. And then housing, of course, we need to make sure that there's equitable housing here. If you look at Mount Vernon, there's pockets of poverty or what I call, I hate to use this term on live broadcast, but slumlords, right?
They are.
Yeah, slumlords here in Mount Vernon or in Yonkers who are kind of using their, they're kind of getting quote unquote rich off the poor, right? In that sense. And so, I think about a lot of my young people who, if their housing is not appropriate, guess what? They're going to end up right back at my door. So my next step for me at the youth shelter is really fighting to make sure that we have what I call, when you were coming home from downstate, they had in previous years, they had halfway houses, right? Mm-hmm. And while I would never use that term because the term is just a negative term, I think we need to think of transitional living facilities for emerging youth, right? Who are in that 18 to 24 bracket that need a place to stay, but also need like a youth shelter to help them keep staying on the right path, to learn how to budget, to learn how to do laundry, to learn how to go to job and come home and do your household duties. And so I'm really focused on a transitional living facility for young people who are 18 to 25, who are justice involved. Because like Damon said, and if you see what the report that Westchester Children's Association put out last year, a lot of young people are informally homeless. And that's a lot of reasons why young people are coming into the pipeline for the justice system. And so housing is a major issue.
Yeah, the director, after they did the report, we had the director on, and the Anti-Racism Alliance, we had them on because they worked on that report as well. Damon and then Bob wanted to say something as well.
Bob, I want, and Bob, you could respond to this too. What Sister said was so important, right? She said you have Mount Vernon, Yonkers, Peekskill. In 1992, I'm going to go back, man, because see, we knew what the problem was. In 1992, the African American Advisory Board gave a report to then County Exec Andrew O'Rourke. And they predicted in 1992 what was going to happen to Mount Vernon, Yonkers, Peekskill, and Portchester. But we're dealing now with the residual effects of the lack of investment, right? We're dealing with the inequality. We're dealing with the poor school systems. All this was in a report in 1992. So everything that this sister is dealing with in the shelter was predicted in 1992. So we're still dealing with the social issues of the failures of a government that gave a report that knew the problem. They knew the problem. See, and that's when I was telling Bob that report was so important because it predicted everything that Black and brown people are dealing with today, even economics, even job structure, right? All that stuff in Westchester County, how White Plains is White Plains, white people, and they purposely moved
White
black people out,
Plains, yes.
right? So that's a whole nother. But when we're talking about dealing with our youth, and we're talking about the lack of investment, we're talking about the lack of black teachers throughout Westchester County, right? Our educational system, right? Our economic system, our family structure, right? All this was known to elected officials that are high up on the political scale right now, because back in 1992, they were city council people and they were on different boards, and they were county legislators. So, we failed we failed, and elected officials failed. And I don't care. I say I haven't talked in a long time. And
we lose David?
Looks like it.
He got froze in the middle of he got froze. Well, I just want to say one thing and about that. We also, and I want to after Bob talks, I want to switch to we need to get them before they get to you.
Exactly.
In late 1990s, the early 2000s, Damon and I, him as a correction officer, me as the men's ministry of St. Catherine's, Amy Zion Church in Rochelle, we were trying to start a prison ministry because the correction officer said when they get there to talk some sense into these kids, it's too late. They're already there. And the correction officers wanted to be able to go out and talk to these kids beforehand. And we were trying to put something together that it didn't get off the ground. And then I ended up moving to Atlanta. But Bob talked, and then I want to talk about what can we do to prevent them from coming to see you or ending up where Damon is. That's go ahead, Bob.
So, Joanne, I wanted to say that the mission of the youth shelter is especially resonant with me because, as some listeners know, I was one of those young men who needed an alternative to incarceration after I was locked up in the late 1980s for a couple of drug possession charges. And lucky for me, and here I want to make a direct plea to all elected officials who may be listening. Lucky for me, there was some sort of modest but significant social safety net. I was fortunate, went back to school at Bronx Community, partly with the assistance of the Mount Vernon Mayor's office. They had a mayor scholarship at the time, I think the Sharp scholarship, I believe. And in addition, there were persons like yourself at Bronx Community College who were there to help me out. We had a paralegal program that offered extra assistance to, those who were exiting the system. And I was fortunate to meet someone just like you, Joanne, who kind of shepherded me through the process. Absolutely. And those were very modest investments. I think today we realize that it's been decades of neglect of our social safety infrastructure, and that we need to begin to make an investment of the kind that's going to allow us to really get through the social crisis that we're experiencing. And I do just want to finally say that your call for alternatives and for legislators to explore them are especially important because just this week, Brett Kavanaugh issued an opinion from the Supreme Court, which really weakened youthful incarceration policies that generally exempted non-adults from serious lifetime sentences, and that appears to be in jeopardy. So I think our legislators have their task cut out for them.
That I would say, and I think, it goes for me, I was 18 once before, and while I didn't necessarily get incarcerated, I made stupid choices, right? We all do at 18, 19, 20, right? We're young and what they call young and dumb, right? We think we know things and we don't necessarily know them. So I always say to people, who in their lifetime doesn't need a second chance, right? We all do at some point. And I think as a society, we have to decide what our responsibility is to our young people, right? And I think that as we continue to think about criminal justice, the criminal justice system and policing and the reform of it, we know that we need to invest in families. We need to invest in communities. We need to invest in our children, and we need to invest in our youth, right? We know that our community program, our community alternatives, they're the bedrocks of really changing the narrative, right? Community is what is going to help solve this issue of policing and justice reform. And so I think that there's a lot of work to be done. I think going back to AJ's point about what we can do, I would have to share here is that, you know, when I got here at the youth shelter, I said, I really want to get into the work of like diversionary, right? I want to get not only just in the intervention and helping young people when they're in incarceration and not only helping them when they're leaving incarceration, but how do I catch them before they even get here? And so we're doing a lot of work with Judge Rice, along with Judge Lyndon Williams and Judge Johnson, Judge Rice in New Rochelle, and Judge Lyndon Williams here in Mount Vernon. And they have opened up what they call specialty courts. And these are courts that are really talking to really maybe divert young people from incarceration. They're called opportunity youth courts, or they're called emerging youth courts. And the goal of really these courts is really to do what we're talking about. How do we catch these young people who keep, you know, coming into the pipeline that are between the ages of 18 to 24? And how do we provide them with programming so we can revert them from having an entree into the criminal justice system? And so we're doing a lot of work there. A lot of these programs are kicking off the ground. I think that on a state level, they see the need to really think about youth and young adults as one and the same. While there's younger youth, there are older youth. And I think that that's something that prior to 2019 wasn't really explored, right? We thought we raised the age and we thought that that was good enough, right? We thought that, okay, now we got to 18 and now we're settled. And now we're seeing with the science and the context of brain development that no, we really need to stop and really work with young people prior to, right, up until the age of 25. So there's a lot more work to be done. I encourage your audience to really go out and learn about the youth shelter, to learn about the work that we're doing here. They can visit us on our website, but I would say stay tuned because there's a lot more work that's going to be going on. And there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And I would say as the youth shelter, we can't do this work alone. Right. And I think that if I had my way, I would almost open up more youth shelters throughout the county. Right. Because while we only serve 12 young men at one capacity, there's a need for 100 beds. Right. There's a need for more opportunities like this. And I think that there's this notion that we need to explore a youth shelter on real wheels to really talk about where we're going.
You know, we have a question. It says the SCOTUS decision is wrong and misguided. How could anyone under the age of 18 be found to be permanently incorrigible? Who exactly are these children for whom this discipline applies?
So that's actually from my PR team, because that was a part of recently, there was a SCOTUS decision in regards to juveniles being sentenced to life without parole. Right. And if we're talking about young people and we're talking about restoring this notion of restorative justice, how can we say that children are really born bad? Right. Exactly. That children have no opportunity to correct their wrongs and make them right. And we think that decision here at the youth shelter is a wrong decision. We think that children there's an opportunity to restore and reshape. Again, we believe that with transformational work, and it takes time, you know, I think that programs like the youth shelter are very, they're like one of its kind because it allows that intimacy to get to know a young person on a level that you get to touch them in their core to really understand how they can turn their life around. And so that decision, we're really fighting that decision. We are going out publicly to also say that we need to, we don't that they think the Supreme Court made a right decision there.
Well, you know, being in corrections for over 30 years, it's not just young people, it's adults also. I've seen grown men that will come to jail and work 3 to 4 jobs at $1 a job and to put their family outside. But the problem is, when they leave jail, they can't find a job.
Exactly.
So if they're able to work 3 jobs at $1 a day, so that's $3 a day, right? They could work one job at $15 to $20 an hour. So, you know, we, as I continue to say, we have the whole thing twisted. People, you know, people do what they have to do to survive.
Oh yeah.
And if you have a community that the resources are sucked out, you know, you can't blame people for doing what they have to do to eat and
To live.
exactly. So, you know, and even with children, they're children. At the end of the day, these are children, right? If they don't have the proper guidance or the proper people because of whatever happens in their family, and we know social issues, you know, from adults down, you know, if we are not giving them the resources to become proper adults, then we failed them, you know, and I disagree with the SCOTUS decision, and I think our local politicians and our state politicians need to step up to the plate. We can change this if President Biden and Kamala Harris is really about it, and they're saying what they want to do. You know, they need to push these the human infrastructure plan what they're talking about. They need to just be like Republicans and push it through the Senate, get it passed, and invest in people that need it. You know, I that's what I think. You know, and if they don't do that, then you know we have to figure out something else. But also you have the schools and the politicians, right? Why don't we partner with BMW and all these other I've said it many times on air. You know, Mount Vernon High School. You know, why don't you partner with BMW? You have the space. BMW has the money. Come in and do and certify these young men and women to be BMW mechanics. Instead of stealing BMWs, they'll open up a mechanic shop and fixing it.
Absolutely.
So we have to start thinking out of the box and partnering with GM, BMW, and get these vocational. Our politicians don't want to think out the box. They don't want to.
Exactly. And listen, if you think about it, Damon, if you think about it, most of our young people know STEM, right? They know science, they know math, right? Right.
Exactly.
So if we were to partner with like a Regeneron or something of that nature to really create a hybrid training model, our young people can take that skill they learned on the street and flip that to a career. I really think that is possible. And I think when you say, are you about that life? We at the youth shelter here are about it. Okay. So we believe in the power of second chances, and we are out here daring our young people to dream. And Bakari told us, Bakari Sellers was our guest speaker back in October, and he told our guys to dream with their eyes wide open. He said, dream with your eyes wide open, and what makes you mad and fuels anger, take that and use that as a catalyst to make change. And that's what we're really doing with our young people. We're saying, okay, if you were a drug dealer, then you know STEM, right? So we're going to take those skills and make those transferable. We're going to show you, we're going to actually put you in a training program. And now you'll be able to make a career from that. And that's really what we're doing. We're taking young people and allowing their because sometimes lived experiences is what is going to help you get along in this life. If you want to be technical about it. Sometimes it's not about all the degrees. It's not about all the things you went to school and educated yourself on. You can take life's experiences, bottle them up, and those could be your champion to really help you move forward. And I can say that personally as a woman who I didn't get here by all the degrees I had, but it was because someone saved me from myself. I had my family to undergird me. I had the community to undergird me, and they helped push me. And I tell my young people all the time here, when you channel your pain into your purpose, it becomes the driving force for you to want to do right and want to do well. And so that's what we're about it here at the shelter.
That's what's up.
We actually covered that. If you see.
I know. Listen, I'm glad to meet you guys because I'm like, they're giving us good PR. They're out there. And I seen you, AJ, on a lot of like, I'm on a lot of like calls here in the Mount Vernon sometimes, just because while we're housed here, I want to make sure we're community, right? I want to make sure that the youth shelter is embedded in community, because I really believe it's community that's going to save our young people, right? And I say this again, the youth shelter cannot do this work alone. It is a whole collective system that we need to put our hands together. And, you know, I would say this about nonprofits, because I've worked in it for years. Sometimes we get territorial because every young person is attached to a dollar sign. So sometimes we don't like to share. But I think we're in a world where we need to stop that, right? We need to stop operating in silos. And as a unit, a collective unit, we need to come together to do some transformational work in our own communities, in our own backyards. And so for me, I'm really big on getting involved, getting out there, getting our young people out there, because I think it's also this notion of the community you roamed, you can do right there, and you can help change somebody else's life and trajectory. So with our young people, I'm all about paying it forward, right? So yeah, you messed up, but now you can help other young people who are in your situation get to where they need to go. So there's a lot of work to do.
I want to before this is something that we definitely first I want to open door policy. We need you to come back. As often as you need to. We need to continue this conversation.
Absolutely.
But before our next guest comes on and we run out of time, how do people get in touch with you? What do you need from people in the community that might be saying, what can I do to help? Those kind of, I want you to get that out there. Make sure we covered that.
So the first thing we need is we need men. We need men to step up, and we need men to mentor these young men. And I'm not talking about in the traditional sense of big brother, big sister kind of model. These are young men who kind of need a man to help them with men things, right? And young people like who are about to go home, who need that not fatherly figure, but that brother, that older young male in their life to kind of help them you know, a long life's journey, right? I think about a lot of my young men here when I got here, and I said, you don't know how to tie a tie. That's like a rite of passage for a young man. So I think just naturally we need mentorships for our young men. I think also we need to think about opportunities for our young men to, jobs, training. Also, what we want to do is what we call a session on active career exploration. So these young men can dare to dream about their futures, right? So people to come in and share with them about different jobs, Dr. Bob would be a perfect example, because he was once one of these young men to say, you can dream with your eyes wide open. Look at me, I'm a prime example. So I think also there's this, I am also in our theme for 2021 is suited in success. And I think when young men particularly see themselves in a different light. So a lot of our young men are known by their mugshot, right? So we're doing a series here, mugshots to headshots. Now you have a professional headshot, right? You also have a customized suit. We want our young men to know that when you look good, you feel good, right? And you start to think about yourself in a different element. Your pants are not baggy. And so we're suiting them in success, but that also carries a notion of not just looking good, but internally self-care, self-preservation, making sure you're equipped with things. So how to get in touch. There's a lot that we need at the youth shelter, but we do virtual open houses. We do open doors. I would say come in and talk to our young people, because they get a credit. You need to hear from them, because I think that you'll see that the experiences have shaped them to get here. They're truly young people that need someone to help set them up and let them hit the alley hoop on their own, right? Put them in a position of power, and they'll take it from there. And so I encourage everyone to learn about the youth shelter. You can visit our website at www.ysow.org. You can call us at 914-668-4702. I am Joanne Dunn. I am I'm not new anymore because I've been here a year now plus, but I am the new executive director. I am ushering in some female power. And I love the work that we do. And they say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, because this work for me is really personal here.
Well, I need you to email me at blackwestchester@gmail.com.
Okay.
I have one or two people that are texting me now that they want to definitely have a conversation with you, and they may be of some help. So definitely,
Absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely. And I would just say, lastly, We did a lot of talking in criminal justice, right? There was a lot of police reform. They had like a lot of community groups. I think that what we didn't do was have a lot of closed sessions with justice involved youth, or right, justice involved people, right? When we think about policing and the people that were most affected on the lines, we didn't have enough conversation with them to think about how we can transform the experiences of others that may be coming behind them. And so I offer this notion of really having closed door sessions with our young people, because I think that that would allow people a space to really understand, like Damon said, how we can invest in the social aspects of our communities so that we can stop the pipeline. We can't build around them anymore. We need to build with them. Exactly. And so I say that because I think that that's where we need to go as a community, as a system. These folks are my moms, my uncles, my aunts, your cousins. They're not criminals. They're people. And I think that we need to put our arms around them and allow them, because if we don't provide them the opportunities, we're just continuing to marginalize the disparities.
I want to say this for the people that are listening and that will listen. There's people that sit around and be like, they raise their children, or they don't have children, or this is not their problem. Not investing in them now, they become your problem when you look like rent money and they knock you upside the head and take your pocketbook or something.
When you look like rent money, right?
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, you look like dinner or rent money, you know what I'm saying, later on, because they had no options and now that's where they are. So don't wait. Like we say, I go out with Snug in them sometimes, and one of the things they say, don't wait for it, senseless gun violence to hit your doorstep before you get involved. Don't wait till then. Like, get involved now.
Exactly.
And as a community, we can do so much.
And we've got to dig deeper. A lot of our young people are getting arrested because of senseless gun crimes. I have a lot of young people who are getting arrested for loaded gun charges or unloaded gun charge. And we as a society, we need to figure out what's this access point that young people are even getting guns, right? So exactly. I think that, we got a lot of work to do, and I'm ready to roll up my sleeve. And I think that, we need more snugs. We need more people to come out in these non-traditional hours to really access what's happening in our community. It's not going to happen Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We got to get out there. We got to figure out, I think, just going back to what happened in New Rochelle, right? What happened, it's really a lot of lives lost here right now when you think about it, right? And so there's a lot of work to do. And I don't never stand to kind of, say that, I stand for someone committing a crime. But I think when I think about a young person who's going to lose their life or their youth or their essence, I think that that's a life lost too as well. And I think that there's a lot more work to do to dig in how we can stop, like I said, diversion, not even just diversion from incarceration, but to stop all of this in our communities, especially communities of color.
We had Yusef Salam on. He's one of the exonerated 5 now, formerly for Central Park 5. And we had his mother on. And his mother was like, what they don't understand is, he was incarcerated for something he didn't do, but we all served that sentence with him. You understand? I'm like, she was saying, as a mother, I served that sentence
exactly.
with him. You know what I'm saying? My son went to clear his name at the police station and never came home. Like, you know what I'm saying? And, so.
And did some real time.
Yeah, so Bob, you
I just wanted to chime in on the point that Joanne made about the need to expand opportunities for youth. Too often when we have these conversations, the notion of a dearth of jobs will be invoked, and I think people quickly gloss over it. And I was recently doing some research from some new data sets that have been put out by the Department of Labor. It's called the Local Employment Dynamic set. And according to the latest figures they have, the city of Mount Vernon only employs 3,696 persons from the city of Mount Vernon. All other jobs for residents of Mount Vernon are sought outside of the city. This really highlights the gravity of the crisis that we're confronting, because actually this is the state of affairs in almost every Black community across the United States. Probably lots of white communities as well, and everyone in between. but we have especially high levels of unemployment, and the economic dynamic that we've set in motion in our communities is not going to absorb all these people. And that's a much bigger issue. You're right. We can put in place some of the diversionary programs. We can try to have some sort of humane criminal justice system in the event someone does something wrong that for which a more serious penalty of some kind is appropriate. But this is all after the horses out the barn, water under the bridge. We're not creating enough jobs.
I agree with you. Prior to me coming to the youth shelter, I ran workforce development programs, not only locally here in the county, but nationwide, going across the country, talking about, if we want to talk equity, we need to talk jobs, right? We need to talk, how to build wealth, jobs, right? And so I agree with you, Dr. Bob, that this is a bigger conversation in regards to the, economic drivers here in the city. What's driving the economics here, jobs. I think also looking at the IDA about like, who are we trying to bring into the city to really kind of bring in more economic drivers here. So there's a lot of conversation that needs to happen. I think that, and I'll say this loud on the air, Mount Vernon is a chocolate city. It's the one of its kind in Westchester County. And I think that, there's a lot of work to do. But I think with the mayor, I think also with, we kind of got to be eyes wide open right now to really figure out what's broken, what's not working, and then really try to talk to it. I think just, we could, and then I think, Bob, like going back to a notion, like we could create jobs, but if we don't have housing, like there's this notion of like, you need to live well, eat well, and, live, eat, and play, right? Like live, eat, and play. You want to live, eat, and play where you live at, but we might bring jobs to Mount Vernon, but then have we also tackled housing, right? To make sure there's equitable housing here in the city of Mount Vernon and other areas of color. So there's a lot more conversations that need to be had. And I think what happens though, when we bring jobs and we bring housing to a community, the most vulnerable populations get left out, right? Those who have criminal background or those who have, they're not making enough money. Those folks get marginalized in essence because they can't compete with other folks to get into those opportunities.
I want you to definitely utilize us, Black Westchester, where you can to get the word out. And and we definitely want to have you back on because this can't be a one-time conversation. This has to be an ongoing conversation.
Would love to.
And anything we can do to help bring the word out, especially to your organization, to the work that you do, to the work that we all collectively need to do. I mean, we definitely count us in. Definitely count us in.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me here. It's Sunday. I just came from church earlier today. It was Family and Friends Day, so I hadn't been to church in a while. So it was good to go there. And then I think this show just affirmed why I'm here at the shelter. I think that, again, talking it out publicly allows me, it reminds me that there's much more work to do. And I think as a system, we can continue to reimagine youth justice here in Westchester and abroad. So I thank you all for having me, and I would love to continue these conversations with all of you.
Absolutely. And okay. I've been looking for my next guest. I'm going back and forth with him. He was. They kept telling me he was in the waiting room, and I'm like, no, he's not. And I'm talking to his people. He just popped in. He's smiling right now. So I guess. Any last words I didn't ask you? And
no, I'm glad to be here. It is nice finally officially meeting you all. I know of you all. You all have an open door to come to this shelter and to connect. I would love to further these conversations, as I said before. Dr. Bob, Damon, I know your daughter here. I think Cupcake Cutie, AJ Woodson. So you guys are no stranger to the youth shelter and to me. And so this is a relationship I'd like to continue.
Absolutely. And we have our next guest in the house, Eric Adams, Brooklyn Borough President. We've been just talking about youth justice. We had the executive director of the youth shelter of Westchester. We're definitely having a very conversation that you would definitely be interested in. And I just wanted to let y'all meet each other real quick before.
Hi, Eric, because I'm about to jump off, but I'd love to talk with you.
I would love that. Good to see you, Joanne.
You too. You
I
too.
will let y'all get connected.
I don't know. Can we leave comments in the chat?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so I'm going to leave my information there, and please reach out to me, Eric, Damon, Dr. Bob, AJ, and anybody in the live audience. Please, I would love to connect further. Community is how we're going to get this work done.
Absolutely, let's get it done. And like I said, we're here when you need us.
Absolutely.
And Damon, your voice, you're muted, Damon. We haven't heard nothing you said.
First, we're going to get him in the mayor's office. Then we're going to get him in the governor's office, and you take it.
All right. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you. Let this not be the last time we see you here.
Absolutely not. I'll be back. So get used to it. You can even add me on Sunday. I might could co-host for you guys one day.
Hey, don't joke. Don't joke. Damon's not here often, and Bobby busy doing research papers. I might need to call you one day.
Well, call me up. I'm game.
All right,
guys. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Yes. And we're going into our next guest. Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, who is also a New York City candidate for mayor. And I've been looking forward to talking to you. I know you know my partner Damon, but I just received a graduate school journalism fellowship through the Craig Newmark School of Journalism to cover the New York City race. So wow. I definitely was looking forward to talking to you where that is concerned as well too. But welcome to Black Westchester. Welcome to the People Before Politics radio show.
Love it. And you have my brother, Damien.
Yes, sir, man.
We go back like car seats, and we fought together for so many years for justice and public safety. You know, I find it fascinating now when people talk about police reform. Because you discover something doesn't mean there were not soldiers fighting for it long before. And when you go and look at the records of the late 80s, mid 80s, 90s, the 2000s, you will see the name of Damien and others, 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement. Right. We've been doing this for a while.
Hey, brother.
And I think the most important thing we can do as we evolve as a people, you know, you don't look back on the soldiers who have been on the field of battle and not understand that this is a marathon and we need to continue to fight. And we learn and draw off of each other. I draw off of Nat Turner. I draw off of Marcus Garvey. I draw off of Malcolm X and Dr. King and Sojourner Truth. And even Reverend Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. Let's not kid ourselves. Obama became president because Jesse ran for president and laid the pathway to see the possibilities. And I just really encourage, you know, a lot of these, you know, strong soldiers that are coming up, know the history of people who have been engaged in this for a long time and really put not only their paper on the line, but put their lives on the line to be about this.
That's
and
right.
Damon, you one of them, and you have been an unbelievable brother during this entire fight, standing tall and firm. The entire Westchester Guardians Association, you brothers and sisters were doing things when people were afraid to do them.
Thank you, brother. But we following your lead, brother, man. Listen, man, you know, I learned a lot from you, man. And when you told me to get out there and speak that truth, I did it. You know, and many times you came to Westchester a couple of times when we were talking about oversight and talking. You and Mark Claxton came up to Westchester, man, and we lit it up, you know. but you know, we're still fighting that fight, you know. And there's a lot of protest profiteers. You know, that have come along and they're profiting from a lot of the groundwork that you did with 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement, you did with the Grand Council of Guardians, you know, and now you took it to the next level when you talked about this back in the 90s, that we need to take it to the next level and talking and dealing with legislation and dealing on the political level to make that change. and you set the blueprint for a lot of brothers that came out of law enforcement, a lot of brothers that were Black activists, law enforcement activists. You know, you're still setting the blueprint because you're going to be mayor, you know, and you're still setting the blueprint for us, you know, to look at, say, look what Eric has done. We can do that too, you know, even if we don't get that high, you know, we could find our niche, you know, in this Black activist circle, you know, and make a change, brother. And I thank you for that, man, because you taught me a lot.
Thank you.
You definitely taught me a lot, man, and it's good to have you on the show, you know, and to push you.
And I feel like I know you because he quotes you so often. I feel like I already know you. Like, I'm always hearing, yeah, Eric said, like, so even though this is the first time I meet you, I feel like I know you already.
Yeah, we learn from each other, man. We learn from each other.
That's right. Even to man, going plant-based, brother. I saw you, man, and you see all the books I got back here, man.
I see that. I was looking.
I'm on my dean, brother, you know, and you know, even that, you know, I saw what you did, you know, in changing your life and changing and reversing diabetes and reversing chronic illness, man. And I did the same, brother. You know, I did the same, man. And you still setting the standards, you know, so even health and wellness, brother, you still setting the standards. And, you know, I'm just following your lead, man. And a lot of brothers and sisters is following your lead also, man.
I appreciate it. I'm looking at those good books you have. I got to send you a copy of my book.
Oh yeah, you definitely got it. Yeah, I got one coming out too, man. I got to send you a copy too. Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Black men. Let me tell you something, and I'm just trying to keep it real because this is Black Westchester.
Yes, sir.
I'm not talking at people. I'm just sharing my journey because I am the poster child for screw ups. You know, so I am in no place to dictate to people, but I just want to just let people know the failures I've made, and I'm just honest with myself. And we have to really tackle this health thing because we can't walk around with saying Black Lives Matters, eating the slave master's food, and knowing that it causes these chronic diseases. You know, liberation is real. Liberation is not, well, I'm going to be liberated on this. I'm not going to be liberated on that. And I'm just having a real family conversation. And, you know, when I woke up that day, Brother Damon and AJ, I couldn't see the clock, man. You know, doctor told me, Eric, you're going to be blind in a year. And I was getting tingling in my fingers and toes. And he was just like nonchalant. Listen, you're going to lose some fingers, you're going to lose some toes. And eventually you have to go on dialysis. And I got to put you on medicine. And I could have easily succumbed to that and said that, okay, you know what, this is my fate. But how do I fight against police brutality, but I don't fight for my body? And so the same level of energy I brought to fight against racism, I said, listen, man, I'm fight for myself. And, you know, to go and make that diet change. And, you know, in 3 weeks, my sight came back. 3 months, my nerve damage went away. My diabetes went in remission. I had an ulcer. The ulcer went away. My high blood pressure normalized. My cholesterol normalized. No medicine. Come on, man. We are rolling our elders to dialysis 3 days a week, 3 hours a day. They are just pumping our family members with drugs. Let me tell you something. The real drug dealer is not the guy with blue jeans on the corner selling crack. It's the three-piece suit pharmaceutical companies. They have our families hooked on drugs, man. You're never off drugs.
That's right.
And so, you know, when you see Black men saying we're going to take control of our health, that scares white America. That them, because now you're no longer on the food plantation. You're no longer part of their economics. That's why they fight it so hard, not to really have healthy food in our community. So, you know, I take my hat off to you, and we need to just keep lifting up brothers in particular. Because listen, let's be real. Sisters are coalescing. They have these groups together. They hang out. They show each other so much love. They got these support groups. What do we have?
Exactly.
America's #1 plan is breaking Black boys so they can become broken adolescents and become broken adults and become part of the broken system. America's plan all across this country, it's about how do we break Black boys so they grow up to be broken Black men.
That's right. That's right, brother. And man, listen, we get ready to set it off right now because you're running for mayor of one of the greatest cities on the planet. And you're coming in with the consciousness, right? You're coming in with Black conscience. You're coming in with health conscience. You come with economic conscience. Do you feel that there is pushback because of your consciousness and what you have stood for in the past and what you stand for now, Brooklyn Borough President? Because I've seen you put gardens on top of rooftops. So dude, I'm like, look at my brother, man. He's doing it. I've seen you do these things. I was just listening to a conference online. You was online. It was like he's going to be the first plant-based vegan mayor of New York, right? I'm listening. I'm like, damn, Eric's everywhere, man. He's everywhere, But with all that you're doing, brother, is there a political pushback, to keep you out of that seat because the good that you're going to do for the average person, not just Black people, because one of the politicians, Adam Clayton Powell, said, if you lift Black people up, you lift America up.
That's right.
Right. So if you're doing that, you're in the process of doing that, do you see political pushback to keep you out of City Hall?
Listen, brother, you hit it on the head, and I am not fighting against the scene. I'm fighting against principalities.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fighting against the unknowns, and I can't get here if I'm not walking in the spirit of the ancestors, because I have defied all logic, and there's no way I should be right here at this level. I'm walking in the spirit right now. These are not my talents. These are not my skills. I'm walking in the spirit right now, and I'm clear on that. And the only way I'm going to be able to fight against those principalities is for the spirit and the ancestors and the Creator to protect me through this. I'm not getting this on my own. Trust me when I tell you. And when I look at this journey, think about this. I am a young man that was a D student in school. Did not realize that I was dyslexic. I thought I was just dumb and couldn't learn, and no one was there to give me the resources that I needed. And I never even shared that. I learned on my own. I went and found the book when I said to myself after years of crying and saying, why can't I learn? And I heard someone talk one day about dyslexia, and I went to the library and started to look at it. Then I had to come up with a system where a friend would quote the books for me and on tapes, little cassettes, and I would hear them and comprehend. Knowing that, then being arrested at 15 and being beat down by cops. These cops kicked my brother and me in the groin over and over again, man. We were urinating blood for a week. And, I was traumatized through that experience. I couldn't see a police car. I couldn't watch a police show. I couldn't hear a siren without reliving that. And it was only until after Arthur Miller was killed by chokehold and Reverend Daughtry said, it's time for you young Black men to go into the police department to fight from within. I didn't want to go into the police department. I was like, you out of your mind? But I had so much respect for them. And the year that I'm in the police academy. What happens? Eleanor Bumpers gets shot and killed by Sullivan. I get into a big fight with the instructor, and saying that it was racist. And he was like, they were like, listen, man, you're not gonna lie to say it, you know. And I used to leave the academy in my academy uniform and go up to the Bronx and demonstrate with people after Eleanor Bumpurs was shot.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? You know, that's
So
how
how do you,
it is, man. People don't know this is real, man. This is not a game.
a lot of our young people can learn from that, because one of the things we say, like one of my favorite parts of Hamilton is where the guy that plays Aaron Burr, he said, you know, I want you got to be in the room where it happens. You know, we complain, we march, and we don't fight for legislation. We need to get more of us, one, to join the force, to be inside that way, but to also get to the room where it happens, where we can be able to help create the legislation.
That's
You
right.
know what I'm saying? Not just keep calling for it from these elected officials, but become the elected officials. So, like, on all those steps, that's what you're doing.
Right.
And I admire that. And you know what I'm saying? And I hope there's young people watching this that are paying attention, because that's, like you said, it was someone who said, you young guys, this is what we need you to do. These young people out there, this is what we need them to do now.
Right. Well said, AJ. And you have to listen. You don't have to do, but you have to at least listen. You know, just take an opportunity to, you know, I believe in this coach-player relationship. No professional athlete is going to be at the top of his game without a coach. Because your coach his legs may not be the best right now. He may not be able to hit that three like he wants. He may not be able to, you know, do all the things he wants to do. But trust me, he knows the game. And this game is only going to change with so much. So be aggressive, be vociferous, but take an opportunity to listen. I listen to my advisors, my elders, and I don't have to do what they say, but at least I sit down and I call them and say, listen, give me some instructions here. I'm at a roadblock.
That's right.
You know, how do I get around this? What do I do? You know, I remember at the height of 100 Blacks, you know, someone pulled up next to my car on Atlantic Avenue in Closet in Brooklyn, and they called out my name. And I looked over to my left in time just to see it looked like it was a 9. And they pointed at my window. I was able to hit the gas fast enough that they, instead of shooting my window or shooting me, they shot the back of my window. And I was shook, you know, and I called, you know, my elders and said, listen, I'm afraid, you know, I just had this experience and I need to know how to handle this. And these cats have went through that violence. They went through the attack. They went through the shootings. They went through the beatings. They were able to nurture me through the process so I could come out the next end and be healthy enough to continue to fight. And if you abandon those elders, you are handicapping yourself.
Exactly. But you know what, brother, and I know this is off the subject. We got to talk about your mayor race, but you brought up something very important. A lot of Black officers don't listen to the senior officers,
right?
That been through the struggle,
right?
When we trying to give them that advice, when we trying to tell them, listen, brother, don't go to the union. Get yourself a lawyer, right? And then when they fired, right, they want to come and want you to have a press conference and do all this crazy stuff. And we like, well, you didn't listen to us in the first place. So a lot of the young brothers and sisters, which we have love for, they're not listening. Like we, you know, Roger Abel used to spank us all the time.
Right. That's right.
He spanked me all the way to his deathbed, right? you understand what I'm saying? He was sick still calling me and spanking me.
Right.
So, but when we try to do it to these young brothers and sisters, they act like, you know, we don't know what we're talking about, you know, and I think that's the difference in the generation, and I hope it changed. You know, because, you know, they're just not listening to the elder brothers and sisters that been through the fire.
Right.
They're also being told, don't listen to y'all because y'all are troublemakers.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you got the powers to be like, oh, no, you're never going to go nowhere if you listen to him. Don't you know, stay away from him.
That's powerful, AJ. That's a powerful thing you said. But first of all, Brother Lewis said we need to be good trouble. But that was what was significant about my run in the police department.
Mhm.
I went from a police officer special assignment, a sergeant, a lieutenant, and a captain.
Mhm.
You know, and so that threw the rule book out the window. You
Right.
can't be strong and successful. You
Right.
know, what you can't be strong and wrong. You
Right.
know, you want to be strong,
Right.
you can be hanging out at the titty bar. You
Exactly.
know what I'm saying? You can't be just doing whatever you want. You got to say, listen, you want to be strong, then you can't be wrong. And so
Exactly.
I was able to navigate and continue to move up, although they came for me, but I had my stuff tight. And so it's not that you can't move up when you stand up for what is right. You can't stand up for what is right if you live in a life that's wrong.
Exactly.
I want
And-
to pass it to my brother, Dr. Bob. Do you have any
Dr.
questions? I know my co-host, Dr. Bob, I want to make sure he gets some question time.
So Borough President, firstly, let me tell you, it's a pleasure to have you on set with us this evening. I know your name for several decades now. As we were having a discussion, I ran a couple of infamous names, like Volpe and others. I generally remember you coming onto the scene of New York City politics as an activist on the cause of police justice. Sometime I guess we're talking about sometime in the 90s.
Yes.
You know, maybe Abla Louima and a couple of the more infamous examples of police brutality. I do remember you being out in the forefront, although, you know, I was way up here in Westchester County. So I was curious. So welcome, and it's a pleasure, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Especially because you have such a close relationship with D. You know, that only deepens my admiration for you. You know, I'm curious. We're in the midst of a crisis has especially left New York City hard hit, and I'm curious to know, what do you think? What are going to be your top priorities? Should you be elected mayor?
Thank you for that, brother. And so Mario Cuomo says you campaign in poetry and you govern in policy. But I have been campaigning in policy. And we must be real honest with ourselves that all COVID did was make the whole country feel black. Because pre-COVID, NYCHA development and public housing was dilapidated. Heat wasn't there, hot water, lead paint. Pre-COVID in New York City, 65% of Black children were not meeting proficiency. Pre-COVID, we were having over 100,000 children live in homeless shelters. Pre-COVID, we were displacing people from their homes, although they were here for 30 and 40 years. High drug usage, food pantries, because you couldn't have enough to eat. Crime was rampant, and we were the victims of crime, victims of police abuse. So pre-COVID, we were already catching hell. What happens post-COVID is those people who thought they would never be on food pantry lines, never lose their jobs, never be afraid to be able to pay their rents, they all of a sudden understood what it was like to be Black in America. And so as we cycle out of this, we can't go to the good old days. We have to go to days when no one is being left out and the inequalities no longer exist. So I'm clear on that the plan must be, how do we end the inequalities? And let me tell you how we do that. Archbishop Desmond Tutu has a quote that I live by. We spend a lifetime pulling people out of the river. No one goes upstream to prevent them from falling in the first place. Our cities in America, they are downstream places. All they do is they have become professionals at pulling people out of the river. We have to go upstream and say, I am stopping you from falling in the river. The reason there's no incentive to stop people from falling in the river is look at the people who are being pulled out. Black, brown, and immigrant. You're pulling people out of the river of crime, the river of homelessness, the river of mental health illnesses, the river of learning disabilities, pulling them out of the river of healthcare crises. All we do is hang out downstream and come up with programs of pulling people out of the river. I say, let's go upstream. Because if you wait for people to come downstream, it's only a matter a number of them are going to drown on their way down. The only way you prevent those drownings is to not allow them to fall in the first place. So what am I talking about? Tell me how 65% of Black children don't meet proficiency every year in school.
Right.
If you don't educate, you will incarcerate. 80% of the men and women on Rikers Island don't have a high school diploma or an equivalency diploma. A third of the 18 to 21-year-old read below a 5th grade reading level. 30% are dyslexic. So upstream, you do dyslexia screening so you can identify a child when they're dyslexic so you can give them the support they need. You don't wait until they think they can't learn, start slinging drugs, carry a gun, do a stick up, and end up on Rikers Island. That's downstream. Now you have to come up with programs because he already has been damaged already. Or even our foster care system. Every year we know 6,700 people age out of foster care. Every year. We know only 21% are going to graduate from high school. 3% will enroll in college. We know they're more likely to have mental health illnesses, become victims of crimes or commit crimes. We know that every year. So why not give them support like something called Fair Future, where they can age out at 26 with a life coach that would give them the support. Studies are showing 90% will graduate from high school if they had those life coaches in the support. But when you look at, well, who are the foster care children aging out? Black, brown, immigrant. Who are the children that are not getting support for being dyslexic? Black, brown, immigrants. No matter where you go, you look downstream and you see professional institutions and agencies that are making paper from pulling people out of the river. There's no profit in going upstream and preventing these crises in the first place. That's why there's no incentive to stop them.
Powerful. David.
Brother, you talked about, which I wasn't able to make it, but I was there in spirit. When the Grand Council of Guardians supported you, you talked about having the support of the blue collar workers of New York City. Talk about your support. Talk about the people that came out in support and why they supported you as a candidate than the other candidates.
And thank you. And when I use the term blue collar as a symbol, not just a type of job status, because I want my accountants, my attorneys, my doctors, my nurses, my school teachers, I want them to understand they work hard too. And they are being betrayed also. And so it's the blue collar energy. All of us, no matter who we are, no matter how successful we are, we can trace our lineage back to a person who was a hardworking blue collar person. They took every dollar they earned, they put food on the table for today, and they invested in the future we are enjoying now. That is the spirit we must return to this city, that hard-working spirit that respects taxpayers' dollars and not treat it like a trust fund baby, that you can spend it like there's a never-ending flow. And so when you look at the support, I have the broadest base of support, as I stated. We have been successful in bringing together this coalition of all these different ethnic groups that are seeing and hearing my vision. We've outraised the entire field. We raised over $9.1 million for this race, and no one else has raised as much as we have. 75% of the people who donated to my race is a low-dollar donor. But it's the support of all of the major unions, DC 37, 32BJ, HTC, Tribal Bridge and Tunnel. All of these major unions have come out and stated, we hear what Eric is saying about running this city in a more efficient way and not create the crisis, so that we can finally utilize tax dollars to lift up all New Yorkers. Here's the role of government. Government is supposed to prepare our children to be adults that won't be dependent on government. And those, for whatever unforeseen circumstance, that need government, they should be able to get the services that they need. And we are doing just the opposite. We are, number one, not preparing our children to be prepared for the future, but we're also not providing the services that are needed. Cities are made up of agencies. And if those agencies are not aligned, if they're not coordinated, they're going to continue to produce a dysfunctional product. And that's what we're doing. And so the support I'm receiving is coming from this cross-section of people who are just stating they want their city to work. They're taxpayers. They just want their money's worth of what they're paying for.
One of the I mean, like everywhere else, I've watched a lot of the debates and I've watched a lot of the talking. One of the big things that keep coming up is homelessness and affordable housing. That seems to be like, and which is the topic everywhere, but that and the condition of nature. Those are major topics that just keep coming up. What, if elected, what would you do to make those situations better, to deal with those situations?
Two pieces that I believe is crucial. As I stated, when I was diabetic and I went to the doctor in Ohio after seeing 5 doctors here, I saw 5 of the experts here. And they all said there's nothing we can do for you. This is your plight. Your mother's diabetic, so you're going to be diabetic. But anyway, when I went to see the doctor, he says, Eric, you're dealing with vision loss, nerve damage, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. You're going to deal with some kidney failures. You're going to deal with all of these issues. He said, I could give you medicine for each one of these ailments that you are experiencing. Or I can go to the underlying reason you are experiencing them, and you're going to reverse all of them. That's the same thing in our cities. And I say cities, plural, because it's all across America. We can say, okay, what are we going to do about housing? What are we going to do about homelessness? What are we going to do about crime? What are we going to do about this, that? Those are all systems of a dysfunctional city. We need to deal with the underlying reason that all of those other ailments are at acute stages. That's what I want people to start thinking about. This spot running from one crisis to the next, that's like playing whack-a-mole. They're going to still pop up. We've been talking about homelessness for God knows how long. We've been talking about NYCHA for God knows how long. I'm saying let's stop doing responding to the symptoms. Let's look at the underlying cause. The underlying cause that all of these things are happening is because the city is dysfunctional. The agencies are not aligned. They create crises for each other. And until you change the incentive of being siloed, you're always going to have these problems. And people are just used to just talking about them. So how do you change the symptoms of just homelessness? Here's what we do with homelessness, our downstream model. We wait till someone that's dealing with a mental health crisis carries out an act in the street that's a crime. We arrest them. We take them to Rikers Island for the crime that they committed. 48% of the inmates at Rikers Island have mental health illnesses. Or if they don't do anything that is criminal in nature, but just something that is dangerous, we take them to the hospital, we give them medicine for 1 day, and then we put them back in the street until they do it again. That is a downstream model. How do we go upstream? We go upstream by looking at programs like the Fountain House. Amazing program, 85% stability rate of all of their clientele. They give them wraparound services, supportive housing. They make sure they get their medical needs, because if you're homeless, for the most part, you're also dealing with chronic diseases. The street homeless, for the most part, are dealing with mental health illnesses. They rebuild trust with them, and they make sure they stabilize them instead of placing them in the revolving door that we have witnessed for so long. But again, who's homeless? Black, brown, and immigrants. So there's no incentive when you're making so much money and having homeless shelters and making so much money doing all of these services for them. That is where people are making paper by ensuring you have this revolving door system, I'm going to go upstream and stop the revolving door of that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to respond to what you were saying, but they're going to this is I'm going to give you a response. But Eric, that's going to cost even more money. How would you pay that money to have 24-hour access? You know, to have them doing all this stuff when we're just putting them back out in the street where they came from the beginning.
Right. And the beauty here is when you prevent, it is more cost effective. We're talking about almost 10 times more cost effective than when you respond downstream. What does that look like? The majority of people who are dealing with street homelessness, they clog up our emergency rooms. Mm-hmm. They don't get medical care until it's at the acute level. It costs more expensive. If I would have gone the pattern of my diabetes, you know how much money I have been spending on insulin, eye drop, dialysis, amputation, so by reversing, I'm saving taxpayers' dollars now. And the problem is we're looking for expensive short-term solutions instead of investment in saving taxpayers' dollars with long-term solutions. So it's not more expensive. It's actually extremely more of cost saving than doing it proactively than reactively.
That's right. That's right.
So you have a rare opportunity if elected. Sometimes they say we need to just clean house. There's 31, 34 council seats, your race, there's going to be a new government in 2022. But unfortunately, there are probably going to be a lot of people that are going to have to learn on the job too, as opposed to people that you'll have, usually the way it works is you have some people that are there, you come in and you work with some people that are already there, and then you get new people. But you're going to have all new people almost. So a lot of people are going to have to work on the fly. Is that a challenge? Speak about that a little bit.
It is a challenge because there's we can't be so idealistic that we're not realistic. And running government, you have to be real about the things you have to do in New York City. Just look at police reform. You have people that have stayed in disband police departments. While we get the city in a safe place, it's almost like driving a car with a clutch. As you take your foot off the clutch and put on the gas, you have to do it at a certain level. Mm-hmm. So we still have a gun problem in our city. You just police departments with a gun problem, that's going to impact Black and brown and immigrant communities. While we transform the city and what we want it to be, we have to deal with the imminent issues that are in front of us. But you don't want to stay in a state of just crisis and imminent issues. You want to start cycling out into a place we're no longer feeding the crisis. But there's some folks that just don't understand there's a process to doing an evolution. That's why they call it an evolution, because you want to slowly correct the wrongs. And if you come into the city council with believing you're just going to blow everything up because it sounds good and not want to sit down and have conversations with people and find out ways of how do we work together instead of against each other, then we're going to have a serious problem in this city.
Absolutely. Because I was when I first got this assignment and I saw all the people that were running, it was just incredible. I don't know, what is it, because of term limits or something? They're literally cleaning house at the council, literally out of 50, 50 or 51 seats, 34 of them are going to change.
Yes, and it is cleaning house. That's a lot of change. And, many people come in, we all have been, I've been the same way. You come in, full with that energy and, really, you just want to, see things turn over. But in reality, it takes work and collaboration to get real effective change.
So how do you work with them? how do you work with, how do you pull that together? Like, that's going to be your challenge if you're in. How do you work with all these? You're going to have the real radical ones and the real. How do you bring all that together to work to run the city?
By really being a consensus builder, by understanding, what their desires are. We don't know who's going to get elected yet. Sit down and give my years of wisdom from my mistakes and errors, and really build some collaboration. We can all get the same things. That we may all have different pathways to get there, but it is very possible that we all can get to the destiny that we're looking at. And by really showing and encouraging people to have a dialogue, not a monologue, not a debate. We could disagree without being disagreeable. And that is going to be important, that we embrace that in order for us to get through this, we have to communicate with each other together.
Dr. Bob had a question.
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to circle back to AJ's question about homelessness, the crisis of homelessness in New York City, and pick up on your metaphor of trying to tackle things upstream before they really metastasize. I happen to teach, and in my class this week, we were just reading about the rise of the so-called real estate state. And essentially, the thesis is that real estate industry dominates so much of our local economies. And one housing advocacy group in New York City, named Picture the Homeless, contends that the real upstream problem is that the real estate industry is creating artificial vacancies in terms of housing. And here I have for you just a little summary, because AJ and Damon know I like to share little stats. According to Picture the Homeless, there are, and this is a fairly recent report, Brother Adams. I don't know the exact year, but it's within the past decade. According to Picture the Homeless, there are more than 3,500 vacant buildings, nearly 2,500 vacant lots that are being unused. And if these are being withheld from the market so that the owners can wait for property values to rise, and in so doing, they're creating artificial shortage in housing. If we adopted some sort of tax program to force them to either refurbish things, get them back on the market, or if not, you start paying the price. We might see an increase in the supply of housing, and even forego the need for having the city foot the full bill with the creation of public housing or affordable housing. I'm curious to know. Yeah, here I'll stop. Thank you. I'm just curious to know, Brother Adams, have you considered this dimension of the housing crisis in New York City? What's your thoughts about trying to find ways to force property owners to get those homes back on the market sooner?
Well, clearly, we need to look at a vacancy tax. We have to, what you incentivize is going to become your reality. And if you incentivize someone holding onto a property or holding on to units and not rent those units, if you incentivize that, then you're going to get that as a final product. I know that many of the units are extremely high now. Rent is high in the city, and it's going to be extremely challenging. I don't know if it can stand up to legal muster to demand that someone charge a certain price for their rent if it's not an affordable unit or rent stabilized or rent control apartment. And so if you have a luxury condominium, I don't know if it would pass legal muster or luxury rental to say you have to rent this at a certain cost, but you can incentivize a vacancy tax. That is what I believe the Senate and Albany is doing now, to see how do we incentivize the rental of those units so that we can actually get people into housing.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm going to have to depart. I would love to come on again, but I have another event to do. this is a big city, and I got this little project I'm doing right now called Running for Mayor. You know.
Thank you, brother.
Yes.
I appreciate you. You know, as you close out, I just want you to say a few things. You made a statement about you didn't point at any of your opponents, but you said that where were they?
Yes. Yes.
When you were standing in the 90s, you were standing 2000s, and you were standing recently, and you know, all for the average person. Where were they? And as you close out, brother, just leave us with a little thing about talking about that you were there when they were doing other things and not even thinking about running for mayor of New York City. You was representing the people of New York City.
That's a real question. You could critique my record because I have a record. And, you know, and so I think that's the question that New Yorkers must ask. Of where were they? You can't all of a sudden discover what people are going through when you discover you want to be mayor. And whichever candidate that can't answer that question, they need to do some soul searching. And if they don't want to do soul searching, the people of the city should do some searching of their records. There are too many incidents that have happened in this city that needed people to stand up and be leaders. And it didn't start now in 2021. These problems existed for a long time. And when you look over my very clear 35 uninterrupted years of commitment, dedication, and fighting on behalf of people, I will put that record up to anyone. And people would look at my armor and they would see some scars, some kinks, some dirt, some grime, and days is not attractive. That's because I've been on the field of battle. I didn't bring it out for parades or just for festivities. I've been fighting a battle for people. And I'm ready to continue that battle as the mayor of the city.
I wish you well. Definitely an open door for whenever you want to reach out and you want to reach the people and you got a message you want to get out. And hopefully I'll be talking to you more with the Fellowship Project on the election.
Yes.
And I look forward to that. Thank you for your time, and we wish you well.
Just want to encourage people, if they want to learn more about me, they can go to the website, ericadams2021.com, ericadams2021.com. You know, you can make a contribution, you can volunteer, you could be part of the movement, and you could look at my document, 100 plus steps forward for New York City. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. So yes, that was definitely a great show. Definitely a wealth of information from both guests, and I'm definitely and Bob. We had the presence of Damon K. Jones in the place to be. Like,
what's going on, D?
Yeah, what up, Bob? What up,
I know.
Bob?
Listen, I'm only talking for the audience right now, man. We miss you, brother. We miss you, brother. That's all I'm gonna say, man. So good to have you back on, man.
Exactly. I'm glad to be back, man. I'm glad to be here, man. It's great to come on. And I just got a text from the chief of Las Vegas Police Department, Louis, who just said it was a great interview. Shout out to my brother out in Las Vegas, Louis Molina. He's doing big things out there.
Yes. Brother Molina.
I am blessed to know great people, man, doing big things. And I hope one day in my life, I'll do just as big a thing as brother Eric and brother Louis Molina out in Las Vegas is doing, man. You know.
And you are on your own terms, even with, you know, coming up with me and starting Black Westchester. Like, this was a void to speak to the people. And we've done a lot of good. That was, and you know, as we come up on our 300th episode and coming up on our 7-year anniversary, we you know, and this is just the beginning of a lot of stuff. So you know, don't undercut. You might not be Brooklyn Borough president, but Joe, you out there, you out there and definitely,
Hey,
I know that your phone rings every time something happens because then my phone rings next. So I know.
Look, man, I got big shoes to fill, man. If you look what other brothers and sisters is doing, and it's a blessing to know them. I'm humble about it. You know, it's a blessing to be around brothers that's doing and sisters. You know, I know a lot of sisters that are doing great things, and it's a blessing to be around them doing and watching them do such great things that they're doing, man. But Black Westchester is something that me and AJ put together, and you know, and it has evolved into being one of the voices of Black people in Westchester County. You know, we're not Black Portchester, we're not Black White Plains, Black Greenberg, Black Yonkers, or Black Mount Vernon. We are Black Westchester, and we represent and we cover the news with a Black point of view of for people of Westchester County, not no individual person or politician. We cover the news for the people, the news with the Black point of view. And what AJ has been doing with the paper is outstanding. And we're going to continue to speak truth to power, whether anybody likes it or not, you know, because it's not, you know, when we set boundaries on what we stand for, and if you don't like the boundaries, it's not our problem, it's your problem. And if you don't like the boundaries that we stand as an independent Black newspaper in Westchester County, you don't have to read it, you don't have to touch it, but you have to take the truth that we put in that paper, because it's nothing else but the truth. We stand by it. Every letter or sentence or period that's put in that paper, we stand by it. And if you feel that is false, you could take us to court and sue us, but you'll lose. So I'm saying that, you know, because there's going to be a day when I come back on and I'm going to whip some of you hypocrites out here, because I see a lot of foolishness going on, and I haven't been on the radio and I've been talking for a while, but I'm standing in my truth, and my truth is going to be truthful, and it's going to whip the naked lies off of some of you fools out there in Westchester County that has been playing the people for fools. And enough is enough. I just been eating vegetables, man, and I've been feeling real good, you know, and I lost a lot of weight, you know, but I ain't
working
lost
on that Peloton, working that Pelotron.
exactly, but I ain't lost weight in my mouth. So don't think I lost some weight in my mouth. You know, I just ain't been bothering with the foolishness and the shenanigans of some of y'all Negroes out here in Westchester County. But what I will say is that we're going to keep on doing it, man. You know, and thanks Dr. Bob and thank Lorraine, and definitely thank AJ for holding it down. You know, but we're going to continue to talk to speak the truth. You know, I'm on a health and wellness kick, but because I really believe that Black people have been bamboozled, and I'm glad Eric came on, and I hope Eric will come back on and talk about his book. You know, and we have to get into talking about health and wellness and how it affects our brain, right, and how it affects the way that we're thinking, because some of us need to lay off the fast food and drop some pounds, and maybe we'll think a little different and stop lying to the people. So you know, we have to get to that point, and I hope we can, because we have to change our communities, man. And part of the thing is addressing healthcare inequities, and addressing how we eat and how we feed our children. And that affects the future of our communities.
One thing he said too, Sam, just like he said, he was told that his mother had diabetes, and that's why he has diabetes, and you know, like it was inherited. And when we had a conversation, it wasn't inherited. The food they ate was inherited, not the disease. So
exactly. Exactly, because my doctor told me the same thing, right? He says, okay, right? You're diabetic, right? And I said, oh, my mother's diabetic. He said, oh, you get it. It's genetic. I said, wait a minute, doctor, I'm adopted. Fuck is the genetic? And that's not my biological mother, right? But the only thing we had in common is we ate the same damn food. I ate the same food that she cooked. So if she became diabetic from the food she was cooking me for the last 30 goddamn years, I'm gonna be diabetic because I'm eating the same food. So we know that is BS when they talk about is DNA. No, it's not the DNA, it's not your DNA, it's the food that you eat every day. Right. And then we wonder why Black communities are pockets of diabetic, high cholesterol, and obesity. Why? Because we all eating the same damn food. We all eating from Wing Chong Lee's Chinese food. We all going to McDonald's. We all going to Burger King. We all eating the hog mogs, and we going to the Jamaican store and we getting the greasy ass oxtails. We all eating the same food. So there's no wonder why we're coming out with the same chronic diseases. And even when it comes to our children, they're being diagnosed ADHD. And there's many reports out there that say a lot of the ADHD, at least 60% of the ADHD is a result in a response to the children's daily dietary habits. So literally, we are giving our children ADHD and chronic diseases before they even get to adulthood. Because if you clog up the arteries, what happens? You get less blood to your brain. You get less blood to your brain, right? And that's what they call brain fog. So our little children, 8, 9, 10 in high school, walking around with brain fog. So they walk around with brain fog, and then they want to smoke weed. They want to drink alcohol. They want to do everything else on top of the brain fog. So then they say Black kids are goddamn crazy. So it starts with the parents. We have to change how we
got to educate the parents.
Hell yeah, we got to educate the parents because we got to educate the parents. And let me tell you, and I'm going to talk about this tomorrow on a later show, but the whole thing is we understand that you have single parents and they're working 2 jobs, they're trying to live, and they feeding their kids McDevils. It's just every day, it's cheap. They're feeding their kids McDevils, and the sisters going through their own, the sisters are going through their own problems. And, they just loving it at McDonald's too, because they going through their own trauma and they going through their own mental crisis. The next thing you know, they obese, and they got high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and they feeding their children high blood pressure, and then they getting pre-diabetic at 10 years old. I mean, this is what's happening in the Black community. And then the fact that, they have poor health care in the Black community. Mount Vernon's still trying to keep their hospital open. You're talking about a city, 70, 80,000 people? And they're going
100 a year.
Let's just say 100,000. Let's just say 100,000. And you got to fight to keep a hospital open with all the chronic illnesses and senior citizens. If that is not a disregard for Black life from county and state government, then what is? We have to call a spade a spade. Black people shouldn't have to fight to keep a hospital open. Black people shouldn't have to fight to keep a hospital fully functional with 80, 90, 100,000 people. But we all know that the medical system, the healthcare system, is all about the Benjamins. As Brother Eric said, prescription medication is the drug dealer in the black community. It ain't the kid that sell weed. Weed is legal now. It ain't the kid that sell crack. It's the prescription drug. It's the prescription doctors that fill people with prescriptions, and they're on prescription meds for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and their damn health ain't fucking changed. Excuse my French. Their health ain't changed. So you get a lady that's on Medicaid, and she's paying $75 a week for medication. And now she's 80 years old, and she's been paying that for the last 30 years. Hell, she could got her ass out of poverty just investing in the stock market, $75 a week for 30 years. She could become a millionaire. But she's not a millionaire. She's still poor. But the doctors and the medication hustlers are making millions of dollars. We have to change how we look at the system. We have to change how we look at the system if we're going to change the black community. And part of it is our seniors and our poor people are spending majority of their money on medication when they could just go to the vegetable market and eat fruits and vegetables and change their life and get off that medication and get their kids off that ADHD medication and stop taking that anxiety meds and everything that these doctors is peddling black people, because we get anxiety just because we're black. You walk out the door, you're scared to get shot by the cops or robbed. So we're gonna have fucking anxiety. But we could change that with the food that we eat. We could change that with affirmations and meditation and prayer. We could change our community. We need these pastors to get on the pulpit and start talking about fruits and vegetables instead of fried chicken and collard greens full with grease. We could change our community through the food that we eat. Because we change our food, we change our spirituality, and we change our God frequency.
That's what's dangerous about Eric Adams running for mayor. That's what's dangerous. That's what's dangerous about him running. And you would probably see a lot more healthy eating establishments in the city. Like you would, we don't have a lot, like on the south side of Mount Vernon, you don't have a lot of that. Like there's not a lot of places. If you're not driving, there's not a lot of places to go get something that's healthy for you. So
exactly. Let me just say something, because the haters that are watching, right? They said, "Damn, what you talking all that?" And your family own a cupcake shop. You shouldn't be eating cupcakes every goddamn day. That's a snack. That's a snack. That's a snack. So,
but they do have vegan. There are some vegan cupcakes.
No, we do that, gluten free and vegan, all that. But at the end of the day,
you should be eating cupcakes every day.
You should be eating cupcakes every day.
Listen.
You gotta.
I could eat cupcakes every day, just because of my affiliation with you, and I stay away from there. I stay away from the cupcake shop, for real, because I'd be 100 pounds heavier if I sat there and ate all the cupcakes that I can eat there. Like, it's just not. You just got.
Thank you, Sister Joanne Dunn. She said, "You guys have been doing the work, so you should be celebrated as well." Flowers back to all of you men of color who are doing the real work, boots on the ground, the voice of Black people. Thank you.
Yes. We were having a conversation. I don't know if you were there, like the March issue, and we were giving women their flowers while they were still alive. A lot of the unsung heroes, and we were giving her flowers while she was still alive. So she said flowers back to us, and I greatly appreciate that.
And June 28th,
go ahead.
There's going to be Black men. The importance of Black men and Black boys rally at Yosemite Park
Mm.
in Greenberg. I'm still waiting on some of the information. And I think that's going to be very important because we have to raise the black man back up. Now, I know some of y'all women are watching and y'all want to throw in the woman stuff. But we've been talking about the black women politically for the last 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 elections. Yeah.
With dealing with the election.
Yeah.
It's the time of the woman. And rightly so. And we believe no nation can rise higher than this woman. But as we lift the woman and lift the nation, must be a strong black man standing there. Let's not get it twisted. And this is not, I'm not trying to talk no male chauvinist stuff. You know, I'm just saying that the colonizer, the oppressor, has always wanted to put the wedge between the black woman and the black man.
Because when they stand together, they're so powerful that they can't do
Exactly.
nothing about it. So that's why there's a power that they can't do nothing about when they stand together.
Exactly. So some of y'all say, well, women are oppressed. Yes, women are oppressed, and black men should stand up and defend black oppressed women. But at the end of the day, there ain't been no time in America that the black man wasn't oppressed. There ain't been no time in America that the black man didn't have it the same or had it the same as the white man. Give me a date. Give me a year that there wasn't a black man lynched, killed, whipped, or killed by police. Give me a year. Ain't been a year since we put our foot on American soil. So don't think that we have it the same as the black man. We're just as oppressed as the black woman, if not even more. So don't give me that nonsense. We have to work together.
Work together. That's the point.
We have to do this together.
Absolutely.
As black men and women.
So
and
just like you're saying that,
together, then forget about it.
Right. Just like you said, black men need to stand up and support the black women. The black women be out there marching and no black men out there with them. We need to support each other. To build a nation, we need to support each other.
Black men have been silent this last election. We've been silent. But we ain't gonna be silent no more. Because we watch our communities. And to be honest, we're both broken people. Broken black women and but we deal with a lot of damn trauma. Just being black. Wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror, trauma. Brush your teeth, trauma. You know, take a shower, trauma. Get in your car, drive down the highway, get pulled over, got trauma. Go to work, more trauma. Because you're black. And you live in a world that has looked at you as a second-class citizen. Men and women. So, you know, we got to work together, man. We got to stop this nonsense. We have to stop this nonsense. It's not a, you know, it ain't no competition on who's the more oppressed. Stop it. We all catching hell. We all in the grave, and our little eyeballs peeking up, trying to get out the grave. Both of us, black men and women. Stop the nonsense, man, and let's work together.
Absolutely. So we got we got Black Westchester Power Hour tomorrow, WVOX 11 to noon, and Damon will be on the Culturally Lit show on WVOX at 7 to 8. Dr. Bob, any last words? Your mic's muted.
Bob, you're on mute, Bob.
I was gonna say, hey, it's good to have Damon back on the show. But D, we're not so excited. At least I'm not so excited to have you on that I will not publicly acknowledge that I missed our co-host, the lovely.
Lorraine,
Who's
yes.
here. Lovely.
Yeah, where's Lorraine at?
You know, you're out there somewhere, Lorraine. You must
She said she's spring cleaning.
She putting laughy faces on my Facebook post. And I see it right now. It says 10 minutes ago. She put laughy faces on my Facebook post. But you know, big shout out to Lorraine.
She's spring cleaning. She needed the week off. Some me time.
Hey, that's all right. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong. And I'm sorry I ran my mouth. Man, I haven't been able to run my mouth.
This is why you need to come on more often, so you ain't got to try to get it all out of one shot.
I feel like you're trying to make up for lost time here, brother.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
We need your presence on more often. Again, this is episode 298. We are 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away from today, from our 300th episode, March 16th, the 300th episode. So holla at us. Definitely gonna have a celebration. Putting it all together now. Thank you for all that kind words about the DMX issue. We're getting calls from all over the country to mail copies, and people like sending postage, like mail it to me here. We got a lot of love on that issue. Next issue comes out Friday. The May issue comes out Friday. Finishing up that now. Last chance to advertise tomorrow. So if you want to get your ad in, you're a candidate, want to get your ad in, last chance to advertise tomorrow. With that said, if nothing else, we out of here, right?
Peace.
There we go. Here we go.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has